I want to thank Katie and Jerry again. Thank you so much for having me. This is my second year. I think what you're doing here, I want to thank you for giving us all a voice to show our work, and it's something that we all need, and we get to see people again and refresh memories, meet new people, meet new filmmakers, and that's what this is all about. And I want to thank George over there, who our tech person over there. Wonderful job, George. Thank you so much. And also, how I got involved with this is a really good friend of mine, and also one of my mentors when I was coming up, Mr. Dan Loria. And he took me under his wing and smacked me in the head a lot of times. And that's true. He knows. Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you a real quick story because I want to talk about you guys. And when I was a young kid coming up, there was no theater row, by the way. There was nothing. And it was Dan. I was just a young kid trying to, grab anything I could to direct or whatever, and knew nothing at all. But I had to learn. And it was Dan Laurie and a whole group of people that I knew and became really good mentors of mine. They actually were the start of building up Theater Row. And when I came to New York, it was like Theater Row was terrible. You couldn't even, drug addicts, every crack addicts, everybody. Even I was afraid to walk home at night because we were all night, 12 o'clock, working on sets and stuff like that. Well, one time I got to know Dan very well, and he says, "Listen, kid, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to get you a job as a PA," because he was doing a soap opera on One Life to Live. And he goes, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to introduce you to AD. They need some PAs. So I'll get you in on One Life to Live. I went, oh, yeah, Dan, yeah, okay. And I go there, and again, remember, I'm 19 years old or something like that, and I walked in, and it was a big old set, actors walking around, and cameras all around. I was just amazed by it. I was like that, all wide open, eyes all wide open. And the AD came up, Dan said, whatever his name was, he goes, "Hey, I want to introduce you to the kid I was talking about, Frank." And he goes, "Oh yeah, we can." He goes, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "No, I don't want to PA, I want to direct." and the guy goes, "That's not going to happen today." So, and then Dan took me outside, and he goes, bam, he smacked me in the back of the head. He goes, "What the hell's wrong with you?" He said, "I'm trying to get you in the door. You got to learn." I said, "But Dan, all I want to do is direct." He goes, "Yeah, but not now. Get in the door." Get in the door, and I came up, and he'll vouch for that. I came up from learning from I went to from the Goodman Theater in Chicago, was elite directing school. Went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts for just to understand acting, and also then I went to film school. But I didn't learn anything until I got into the real world. I mean, yes, I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong. I learned technical stuff, things like that, and that's what I do nowadays. I give lectures around the country and around film festivals about the reality of the film business. What do you expect? What do you do after film school? And that's basically what this is all about. And because I started from PA and all the way up to AD and second AD, line producing, all the way up to producing, working for a studio, executive producer for Lionsgate, and moved on. But each level was a learning tool, and I learned from that. And it was from these guys like that said, just humble yourself, learn. But I learned and I applied. And that's what we're all doing here. But I work with pretty well-known people, pretty unknown people. I like working with actors that are just coming up, fresh actors and fresh young directors. And the thing is, I don't want to turn this into about what I do. I want to help, because we only have a short amount of time. And if you guys have, I want to turn it on to you if you have any questions regarding production, regarding acting, writing, production, producing, directing, writing, anything you have, any questions that you may want to have answer or you want to get stuck with, please open the door and let's open this up and let's all share it together. That's what I think is a really good step for today. Because we don't have that much time, and by the way, I love those shorts. These blocks of shorts here, and I wish they were here. I wish they would have stayed. But I'm going to show you the cookout first, and then we'll get into a Q&A. Okay? And I second unit directed this, and I'll tell you a little bit about the headaches of the production. Okay? Afterwards. Okay?
First pick of the 2004 draft, Todd Anderson from Rutgers University.
Cousin Todd got drafted. Drafted? Damn this war! Not worth more than $50 million.
How do you plan on celebrating?
We're having a cookout! Oh!
I just saw a gang of Negroes across the street.
Negroes?
Time to break it down. Excuse me, I gotta get that grill running.
Oh, I live here. This is my house.
Yeah, right. You got a giant cock in your kitchen.
Why you need 10 vacuums? You only got one ass.
Joe.
Don't play, they spit rounds. Sharks smell the money, then they aim and they gun you down. Let me tell the game how it goes in my town. City is second job. They don't F around with you, they send them to come and get you. Take your life in the instant for not paying attention. Killers don't talk, they get high before the lynching. Anybody snitching, you can catch me on the mouth.
Your family is a spread.
On the square, they call me Mr. You-know.
No solicit. Wait, what you got there? You got Slim Mints? Go and get the hell out of here.
That was a good one. And by the way, that was Farrah Fawcett's last movie, by the way. And that was a lot of SNL actors, comedians at the time. And the headache with that project, it was called The Cookout, which means that the show took place in one day. So we had those people for 4 weeks all together because it was one day for continuity. They were all there the whole time doing the cookout. And that was one of the hardest things. And Queen Latifah was doing Taxi at the time. That was a bigger film for her, Taxi with Jimmy Fallon. And she was not going to, the studio said, well, if we don't get her, we're not going to greenlight this picture. And so what happened is I sat down with the producer of the Taxi, and we worked out her schedule so she could fit into our schedule, and we worked it back and forth. She was actually shooting the Taxi at the time, if you guys remember that comedy. And it was a crazy production, but it was because of the scheduling. And we had other stars involved who couldn't fit our schedule, and they said, I can't make it that day. So we had to build everything around Queen Latifah. And that was a headache. That was a production headache. But once we got everybody there, man, those guys were the best people I ever worked with, man. Danny Glover, I mean, they were so funny. The two heavyset kids. They always ask me, hey, Frank, I need production petty cash. I said, I just gave you $10, man. You know, so can you get us a car? No, I don't. You can't. Your mom told me not to get you a car. You know, so it was like crazy, but it was a lot of fun for us. I did second unit directing on that. There's a lot of basketball games, and also I produced that, line produced that as well. So I was assigned by Lionsgate on that. So let's open this up to any production questions that you may have. Acting, writing, directing. We got Dan here. We got some good writers. Laura Harrison's wonderful, and Lori, another one. Lori, I know their work from. They're screening at 47, a show at 6:30, and there was also in Tryon. We just came back from the Tryon Film Festival, and they were all there as well. So anyway, any questions? Any production questions? Let's turn this about you. Any concerns that you have? Because I want to give it back to you instead of talking about people. Yes, sir.
Got a producing question.
Yes, sir.
I think a lot of people here are probably used to making films for no money.
Yep.
What's your route in like a modern industry or for getting funding for an independent filmmaker?
It's very tough nowadays. That's a good question, by the way. It's very tough nowadays. Well, I got lucky. Again, it's luck, man. There's a bit of luck that comes with what you do, but hard work, a lot of hard work. When I got out of film school, I got lucky. I hit up with these investors who wanted to do horror films. And then back then, way back then, it was $100,000 to do them, but they made millions. And this is around Mother's Day, around Halloween, all those classic. One of my films called Brain Damage, which is a stupid movie, but it's like in the Horror Hall of Fame. And somebody called me up last year and said, "Yo, your Brain Damage is in the Horror Hall of Fame." I said, "Are you kidding me?" And I looked it up and it's there. I said, "Oh, it's about this kid who." Had an attachment, and that attachment was telling him what to do, And then, but that was back then. It's kind of like today is tough. Today is a little tough because the budgets are higher. Everything, even theater. I come from the theater world as well, but and it's a really tough market right now. But you have to. One thing I remember is why I brought that up is I was doing those $100,000 films, but I didn't want to stay in horror, so I wanted to get out of it. What I did though, what was smart, was I hired real good crew members, like real good Richard and all these guys, electrics. They were doing top shows at the time. And I surrounded myself with good people. And then when it was time for me to move up, and I paid them their rate. I just didn't know there was no benefits and stuff, but I paid them their rate. But when it was time for me to move up, they helped me move up. Because I wanted to get out of horror, that whole market. And they got me into Ghostbusters 2. I was one of the second ADs on Ghostbusters 2. But going back, we used to do low budget films. And then one time I had a meeting with Mark Scorsese, And he said one thing that made sense to answer your question, because I asked him the same question, and he said, get out of that, make your budgets $1 million, go for, or that back then, $1 million was a lot, so but probably a little bit more now. He says, go for that budget, because if you stay in that low budget, the investor's gonna say, well, what am I gonna, how are we gonna make money? They don't take it serious for some reason. There's a line drawn there. So go after that bigger money. But nowadays there's so much more technology that will help you do support lower budget things. I think what I learned in Triumph Film Festival is shorts. I think shorts for a young filmmaker, or any filmmaker today, is a way to go. It's like we used to do off Broadway theater. And it's a way to practice your craft because they're cheaper to do, to go back to low budget. But here's the trick. Don't do Terminator 2 on a small budget. Don't do on a short budget. In production value, casting, acting, production, acting, good directing, good story, and good publicity for these shorts. I strongly believe that. I'm going to be doing a shortly because shortly. But I want to do a short soon because of that reason. But I think that's a way to go to show your work, get in the door, because now the studio system is totally different than when I'm talking about I work with Lionsgate and stuff, and everything's live streaming, everything's like Netflix, everything's in there. But now you have showrunners, you have creators. Before you used to have producers go in and our studio heads. When I was a studio head, we used to have we're going to producers and put things together. Now you have showrunners who are the boss of the show. They run the show, and then it's also like. It's a good time to, when you're young and coming up, when I say young, I don't mean age, I mean a young filmmaker, is you're going to compromise. If you're going to deal with the big boys, and you're going to take your script into Netflix, and they're going to say, we like this. We're thinking about doing this. And they say, well, we have one little change. As long as that change fits within your realm of reality of how you want to make it, you're going to have to give that up. You're going to have to say, yes, okay, you have to compromise. It's a major, major compromise. We used to fight to get, when I was in charge of second films. So I had my group, but there was 5 other producers up there saying, well, we want to fight for this. So we would all fight for our projects to get greenlit. And whatever it was, and the first thing that Robert Shea from NYLI used to say, what is your audience range? If I came in with the script and said my audience range is 45 to 65, he said, no, get it out. If I came in and said my audience range is 15 to 65, that's money. That's money for the bank. That's money in the bank. That's what the studio looks at. And money and art goes together, and you have to learn and work with that because you're going to get paid and you want to get paid. And so, so you may have to compromise but at the same time, you may have to fight for what you want as well. But get established first. Let them see your work through shorts. Don't try and do a big movie now. That's just what I'm saying today is just please, it's my opinion. Let it go through one year out the other. If it doesn't work for you, if it does, then take it. It's for free. So the thing is, so I would say that's a good way to show your work, and opposed to trying like we were coming up, we were doing whole movies, but the budgets were cheaper then, So that's my suggestion. And learn. Do you know how to do movie magic budgeting and scheduling and all that? Learn that. Learn that. That's going to be your master, and you're going to be switching that schedule around. When I did Cookout, man, back then we didn't have computers. We didn't have movie magic. We had boards, we had strips, and we had to strip them back. And then when somebody's Queen Latifah will say, well, I can't make this day, boom, it changes everything. It changes, it's a domino effect. So, and that's your job. That's what you get paid to do. But I would say that way, if that helps you, look at it that way. And these shorts were good, man. These shorts were really good. And I liked some of the DP, the camera work. But go stronger with the production value. Go strong with the story. That's what we do. We tell stories. Don't go with a cheap story. Go something that's going to show your work to get you in that door. And you could do it on 50,000, 20,000. You could do it on a good short. And I really strongly believe coming out of Tryon that I saw some really good, top-notch shorts that got picked up. And the outlets for them are dynamite now. You got Netflix is doing short documentaries, shorts, films, and everybody like that. And I think the Oscars are considering a category for shorts for the Oscars. So you have those outlets possibly now to go to. So that's my suggestion. I would concentrate on that. Yes, sir.
You mentioned like the importance of Queen Latifah to getting that Cookout made. What do you think about name talent in shorts and low-budget independent film? And if you think it's a good idea, how do you get name talent?
Well, Dan's in one right now. He's in one, and he's a well-known actor. He's a good actor. I mean, but if they love, if you know them, if you know them, yeah, if you know them, then yes. Like Dan would do anything for anybody, you know, for anybody. And even me. Oh, by the way, Dan, I have a new project for you. It's a very good short. You know?
I'm in.
No, but it's.
But might do craft service.
Yeah. But it's you know, you got to be careful with that. I came through through ringers with stars and stuff like that. But I'm at a point in my life when I work, and I told Laura the other day, is I don't want that baggage. Don't come here if you're an actor, or if you're a director and I'm producing and I'm hiring as a director, either way. Don't come here with your baggage. Don't come here with your entourage. Don't come, and that's why I told Queen Latifah and everybody, don't come, and that was Ja Rule, by the way, who was fighting with 50 Cent at that time. That was another story. But anyway, it's like, don't come with your baggage. Come and take responsibility for your work. Because I still believe in the craft. If I'm gonna come in there and give you my craft, I expect you to believe in the craft. I believe in the process. I still believe in that. So I work with unknowns, I work with knowns, I work with everybody. But be very careful, because I don't want to say any names, but one time, Dan knows the guy, the really good friend of ours, young kid, had a great film. The studio picked it up, and it was made. It was a big film. And then he just said, I got the star. I said, be careful of that, man. By the time that film was done, that star had his own writer, his own director, his own thing on. He took all the best lines for himself from other characters, and the kid couldn't do anything. And he complained to the studio. And you know what the studio said? We're not going to hit the star. We'll drop you before we drop the star. He goes, well, it's my project. Not anymore. It's my project. So I use that as an example. You be careful what you ask for. Now, if you know you can get a star who's going to work with you and believes in the work, then go with it. And don't get a star that's not right for the role. You know, you want to get people production value, good casting, good acting, good storytelling. That's what we do. That's what you want to get. So I go, I'm in a position now where I work with people, well-known people, and not. I'm the one who found Ryan Gosling. And the studios did not want him. It was a film called The Believer. And I'll show you a clip out in a little bit. And the studio did not want him, but me and the director fought for him. And because Ryan Gosling at the time was coming off of Hercules and Young Hercules, and he was a Disney kid. This film was called The Believer. It was about a Jewish kid who lost his faith and joined a neo-Nazi group, contemporary times. And they said, our argument was, no, he's a Disney kid. He's Young Hercules. He'll never be able to play that. But he auditioned for us, and he had long blonde hair from Hercules. And the director came and said, this is a skinhead movie. We're going to call you back. It's a skinhead movie. And he came back, he shaved it all off. And he was so good back then, and he's still good today. And then the studio they finally agreed to go with him. And then after we won Sundance, got nominated for an Oscar. He got nominated for an Oscar and that. After that, that same studio who fought us hard not to go with him, hired him for Murder by Number and Notebook. And the Notebook is what pushed him over the edge. So that's a studio. That's there's no staying like you're fired until I need you again. That's the studio system. And you got to learn to work with it. There's a great documentary I just saw on Martin Scorsese, by the way. That's on Netflix, I believe, or Apple. I didn't know any of that. I worked with him twice, and I never knew that. What was going, and he was so open in his work and his progress. It's like us all asking questions. He was successful, and he's still trying to get movies made, and he couldn't get it made. And one time I was trying to get financing with this one group. I went in, and I'm sitting there trying to, I had an appointment, and out walks Martin Scorsese and somebody else. I went, oh man, there it goes. I mean, they're going to give it to him. And I went in and I said, okay, and I tried to pitch it. I said, listen, what you got? I just saw Martin Scorsese. He goes, they said, no, we're not going to give it to him because he's asking for too much. I said, well, what's too much? And then I shifted it, so to try and win it back, But we're all in the same business when you really get down to the bare knuckles of this whole business. We don't know what's going to happen. All we can do, I can tell you the success of a movie. All I can tell you is I put my heart into it. I'll take the dice. I'll get great people around me. And that's very important. Great people around you. Get great people around you that's going to pull you out of the trenches, because I'll lose in the middle of production, I'll lose orientation. I'll get lost. I'll say, where the fuck are we? And then I want that crew to come up and help me out. If I mistreat them, they're gonna say, get yourself out of that trench. You know, so I believe in that, so that's what we have to maintain on that. Any other questions? Next, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sure you've worked, I mean, you said you're a writer yourself, you worked with a lot of screenwriters, and you said the relationship with, you know, creative showrunners and studios has, you know, changed over the years. From the way you see it, when you see these new voices that are screenwriters coming into it, what do you think are the angles they take that are the most successful, and the angles that screenwriters take that, you know, are rooted by?
It's a matter of taste, it's a matter of what you know, it's a matter of what you like, I would say I like that, some would say, oh, I hated that. You know, so I love Aaron Sorkin. Dan grew up. We all came into the theater with Aaron Sorkin and that, and he was an actor then at the time, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah, and then so I mean, yeah. So we work with, but I learned to work with writers. They're very. I have a co-writer that I work with for the last 20 years. I don't go anywhere without taking it with me or having him review it or we go through it and stuff like that. Usually I come up with the ideas and then we put it all together. So it's that relationship that we have, and when you find someone good that you can work with, you keep them. You know, you guys, that's when you build that relationship. Doesn't mean that he always works with me. He works with other people as well. But, you know, but when we need each other, we depend so much on each other. But it's changed in a way that, where I remember when, and Dan, you might remember this too, when HBO almost fell. It was almost went under. When they first started in the 90s, it almost went under because they started a format of like Hallmark, like that the goody good two shoes type movies. And they were about to lose. They were about to lose everything. And then they hired an artistic program director. And he said, listen, you want to save this? I'll save this for you. He says, but we're going to have to go edgy. And the exact same thing that I'm echoing him. Good production value, good stories, no big salaries. Let's go with good directed and good stories. And what came out of that was Oz, Sopranos, 6 Feet Under, Carnival, Rome. And that's what kicked them off. That's what they said, oh, God. And then they had when it got later on, when it was very successful, someone said, and I read this in the New York Times, someone said, well, you're getting too violent. You know, your shows are getting too violent. They had the best answer. They said, well, turn it off. You're paying for it. You know, you're paying. You don't like it, turn it off. You know, we have HBO Children. We have HBO Disney. We have HBO, you know, watch something else. And I thought that was the best answer for that. Because I thought what they did was great. Those shows were great, and they're still doing great stuff. Band of Brothers, Pacific. I mean, they're doing really good work. So I like that kind of stuff. I like heartwarming stories, you know, that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of great work out there right now, and a lot of fresh minds. But I'll tell you what, back then, no major actor went to cable. There was no Netflix. With HBO, they didn't want. It was like, oh, TV. Oh no. But now you see that's the audience now. So they want that audience too. That's the younger audience. So that's why you see Nicole Kidman. That's why you see all these people going back to now in these days going to Netflix, cable, and now they're starting to get into that big salary again, and it's going to hurt them, you know. But to see how that works is on a film like Lionsgate from a film, you work on your profit, your budget, and that's what your box office gross receipts. And cable, you work. You're always they got 20 years of subscriptions. Of 3 million people, 10 million people at $20 a month. That's how they operate. So they go into debt already. They're playing in their books. They're already counting on their subscriptions. And now you add that by worldwide, you got 100 million people watching Netflix. You know, times 20 a month, if it's that low. So that's how they bank up everything, and that's why they can spend money. But they're starting to spend too much money on top stars and stuff like that. Again, I think that's my opinion. So, and yes, sir, you had a question.
Yes, I can't imagine how many scripts you've working with over the years as a director. I just got out of film school, and I wish the thing that I spent more time on was working with actors. So when you first get a script and you go over it over and over again, how do you go about envisioning the performance you want, and then how do you go about communicating that with actors so you can get like a true dimension?
Well, that's a three-fold question. First of all, you take it from the beginning. Take it from the beginning. If the question is if I'm writing it, then that's a different approach. If I'm reading someone else's script and taking someone else's script, then that's a different approach, because I have to see if I can work with the person. They have to see if they can work with me. How I got The Believer was if I remember, it was a movie. I was assigned to a movie called Perfume with Jeff Goldblum and all these big old stars, but there was no script. And it was like it was about the high fashion industry. And I said, man, I got to get off of this. I said, and the director kept saying, I don't need a script. We're all going to improv. We're going to improv. I'm going like, yeah, when the shit hits the fan, I don't want to get blamed for it. As the producer, I said, nah. So I went, I said, please, can you get me off this film? They said, well, we got a film starting up, a small film called The Believer. I said, I went with the director. That was important meeting, because if he said, no, I don't like him, I don't want him, I can't work with him, then that would have been a whole different story. But we hit it off very well. And so that kind of takes place. But I'll tell you one thing that helped me is I was always a director. Since I was 5 years old, I wanted to direct. I have 7 sisters, and I put them up on, I used to get plays from the library, have them read it, and I'll be like, okay, action. And they'll walk off. I go, wait a minute. You can't walk off. I'm the director. They go, yeah, really? Damn. And they walk off. I said, okay, I got to learn how to work with actors better. You know? So I don't get mutiny on. So what I did, when I finished, the Goodman Theater was an elite directing school at the time. It was the only directing school in the country, really, back then, because you always had school for acting, writing, production design, that kind of stuff. But the Goodman Theater in Chicago was a really good theater, young director school. So when I graduated, I asked my professor, what should I do next? Everybody would say, I'm going to New York, I'm going to go to Chicago, I'm going to go do this. And I said, what should I do next? He goes, you really want to be a director? I said, yeah. He goes, I can get you in the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and you have to learn as an actor to sit there and learn how to act. And I go, oh man, that's another 2 years. It was a 2-year program. And he said, no, if you want to learn how to communicate with actors, learn what they're going through. And it was one of the best things. I hem and hawed. I went, oh, no. And then finally I said, okay, I'll do it. So he got me into the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, here on Madison Avenue. But I couldn't tell him I was a director. You had to come in as an actor, and you couldn't work outside of the program. It was a very strict program. But what they did at the time, they took me through that process of what they had to go through. And I was up there, everybody was like, oh yeah, Shakespeare, blah, blah, blah. I was making up lines for Shakespeare, you know. I did a monologue with Mark Anthony at the end when he's talking over to Caesar's body. And I go, Caesar, Caesar, Caesar. And the teacher goes, you just rewrote Shakespeare? I went, yeah, but it's felt good. He goes, no, that's Shakespeare. You don't rewrite Shakespeare. So when I was a director, I knew back down, but it was one of the best things I learned, because it's how you communicate with your actors. It's very important. You don't do line readings, people. Directors not line readings. Directors not move over there, unless it's, that's technical. That's your technique. You never give an actor a line reading. They'll throw you off the step. And don't ever give it even a young actor. And the biggest thing is, directors, you're not acting coaches. You're not acting teachers. Don't say, I had one young director say, well, I said, this girl's, she's not ready. She's not ready to perform yet. He goes, well, I want to teach her the role. I said, what, are you a teaching coach now? Are you an acting coach, an acting teacher? He goes, no, but I can teach her. We're not that. You do your homework as a director. And I always tell my actors, you do your homework. Don't come here, have me learning your lines and all that kind of stuff. I don't care about your objective. I really don't care. But I care about how we execute the vision that I want as a director. And everybody has to fit in that mold. And it's very important to fight for it. Now, it doesn't mean that it's my vision only. And I'll tell you another story. It's like one time I had a DP that I worked very close with. And I set up a shot. I told him we had pre-production, and I said to him, I want static, I want movement, I want this and that. And then I set up a shot where these 2 brothers were fighting over a leather jacket in their bedroom. And I set up a dolly, and basic coverage, wide, medium coverage. And I set up, and the DP goes, Frank, listen, man, I'm gonna take you to the side. He took me aside. He goes, man, that's static, man. It's boring. He goes, please let me get in there with my camera. Let me handheld. We were shooting film then. And he goes, let me get in there. Let me get in that room, and I'll follow. And I said, well, show me. And he did, and it was the best thing I did. I listened to what his vision was. I listened to what his input and what I was trying to achieve. He achieved that. That's the team you want around. I don't want a DP to come and say, okay, I'm going to do my vision. Okay, you stand with it, I'll shoot it this way. No, that's not what it's about. An actor, you work with an actor, just because I say something and they say, well, you know what? And I'll tell you what's the beautiful thing about actors. As a writer myself, and my co-writer and I, we write. First of all, it takes 2-3 years to finish a good screenplay, and that's how long it takes. Draft after draft after draft after draft, and then it starts singing to you. Then you got to start listening to the screenplay. It'll tell you when it's ready if you listen very carefully. But what the beauty of what actors do, when they come in, they're auditioning and stuff, they read the sides and they read a piece of the scene, and they lift it up. They lift those words up and the subtext. They always ask, what do you want? What this kind of, I said, well, this is it. This is what I'm going for. And they just take it. And they'll say one word. And I remember my co-writer and I go, well, we wrote it that way, but they just took it that way. Let's go with what they say. They lift it up, man. And that's the beauty of it. That's the shit, and that's the work that we're all seeing here. And that's what I'm saying. Apply that in your shorts. Get good actors around you. Don't compromise. Don't compromise with your best girlfriend or whatever. To put her in and she's not good or he's not good. Do it. This is your business. It's like a laundromat. You invest in you. You invest in yourself. If you need a lens, don't say, okay, if you need an acting class or like something like this, don't say, oh, I can't afford it. So find the money to do it. It's not going to cost you. Money's nothing. You'll make money somehow, So that's not what I negotiate. When I negotiate a contract, the money is the carrot. The money is the carrot. They say, okay, we'll give you $100,000, walk away, and what's all ours? Really? Well, $100,000 when you're broke is a lot. But that's the carrot. What I negotiate now is is this project going to waste my time or my mind? If I get in there and you hire me to do my job, and I say, okay, I want to shoot it this way, and then you come and say, no, I want it this way, I want to do it this way, I want to do it this way, then you're wasting my time. And then you're wasting my mind. And that's what you pay for. So it's your business. You got to build your business up. If you need something, if you need movie magic budgeting, buy it. Find the money to buy it. Ask your parents for Christmas or whatever, Find it. You don't let that stop you. There's too many stops. And what you're really doing is you're stopping yourself. And in this group, I'm not saying you guys do, because you're here. And I see the work up here, and this is my second year here. And I go to a lot of film festivals, and there's some really good work out there, man. So that's my opinion on that. Anybody else? Any girls out there? No, Dan.
Kate mentioned after one of these shorts, do you have a bigger film? What do you think about using your short film, but having a screenplay for a bigger or a series?
Yes, that's building your business.
Yeah.
That's building.
Act like a trailer.
Yes, because they're always going to ask you, what do you have next? What are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? So you always have something going on. I have 5 projects going on. Everybody's going, which project are you going to do next? Well, to be honest, whatever one gets financed, that's the one I'm going to do. And they're all different. And so he may be an investor. He goes, I like that project A, but I don't like project B and C. Okay, then do A. So I have 5, 6 projects ready to go all the time. Ready. I'm talking about ready, production ready. What's stopping us is the financing. That's the hard part. I mean, the hardest thing you're going to do in your life is to raise money for a film. That's the hardest, because there's no collateral. There's really, right? If you're raising money for a building, well, the investor will say, well, we got the building if you default. We own the building. And you say, yes, okay. But what I created was the tax incentive in the states that offer tax incentives for filmmakers. And you have to follow those rules, because it doesn't mean that you do a $200,000 budget and you're going to get a tax incentive back. Each one has a cutoff. But the thing is, what I do is I took that tax incentive, which is, like, say, for example, New York, 40%. So let's say your budget is $10 million. So if the state's going to give you 40% back, which is $4 million, so they're going to find something not to bring back. So I always count 70% of that. So let's say they give you $3 million back, $3.7 million. What I do is I take that and put it into an escrow account in the name of the investor group or person or whatever, so that tax incentive program gets paid back when you finish shooting, not when the movie comes out. So that way they get 1/3 of their money or something back right away. And that's how I try to build up collateral. It's not really collateral, but at least I put that in an escrow account. Normally what happens with big studios who gobble up the tax incentives, they take it. It comes to the production company. I can do anything I want with it. Or sometimes I'll do it for festivals if I need to finish post, or if I have to pay off deferred salaries, then I'll use that as well. But I use that to build up some sort of collaterals for the investors, to at least get 1/3 back. Because in the end, what you're really going to do, brothers, all you're going to do is make the movie, put it in your hand like a dice, and you throw it on the table. How it lands, I can't tell you. I can't tell you how it's going to land. I've seen big directors have big movies, and my film's going to be the best, and it will flop. And the little projects, boom, skyrocket, like George Lucas with Star Wars, and Brian De Palma with Heaven Gate. They thought Heaven Gate was going to be the biggest thing in the world. And George Lucas would go, oh man, I got this project about stupid little robots, and oh man, it's never going to do anything. And the rest is history. So you don't know. All you do is put in the work, and you know what? You go for the next one. When somebody says, I saw your last movie, that's like 2 years of our life, man. I say, well, I did that movie 2 years ago. I'm already on another movie. And that's the blessing, because you want to keep working. Anybody else? I saw a hand somewhere. Yes, Laura.
Well, you sort of just answered it, but my question is around, when you're looking at projects to do you do what you know, or or do you look for what you think the market might want?
Well, sometimes I'm hired, like I did a show called Kelly's Corner, which was from Comedy Central. They hired me as a director, and it was Kevin Hart who was actually executive producer. And it was it's kind of like Sanford and Son, but modern day, but instead of a junkyard, it took place in a bodega in Jamaica, Queens. And that, I was a work for hire. So you have to understand your position. Kevin Hart and the actors, they all, and the studio all had a way they want this done. And they're saying, we're hiring you, just like I told you, if I'm hiring you to execute my vision, they said, we're hiring you to execute our vision. So when I did try to say, let's go here, let's go there, and they said, no, we want to keep it this way, it's more commercial, we want to go this way. It's more Comedy Central. They always say, no, this is more, you're not doing Comedy Central, this is Comedy Central. And so I had to follow that. I don't put that on my IMDb or my resume because I didn't like it. I didn't like the outcome of it. But they, and there was a test pilot for them. So they eventually ended up not doing it. But it had some great people in it. But again, I was work for hire. I knew my position. Like when I was in the studio, working in the studio, I'll tell you a story. It was one of the projects I was assigned to was Monsters Ball. Monsters Ball was assigned to, came through Lionsgate. And they said, we want you to go ahead and do it. Now, with Lee Daniels, the writer and director, and that was his first big break. Are you guys familiar with Monsters Ball?
Yes.
Okay, you know, the story was Halle Berry they cast Halle Berry.
Yes.
And then Billy Bob Thornton.
Right.
And then he falls in love with her in a diner. And then she has a heavy-set kid, and she gets mad at him because he's overeating secretly. Okay? Now, the original script, now, this is my job as executive producer. The original script came to me, it wasn't written that way. Halle Berry's character was a 400-pound black woman. And I thought the dynamics of that was incredible. Aesthetically now, we're talking aesthetically. I said, because anybody who sees Halle Berry floating around the diner floor is going to fall in love with her. But imagine a 400-pound, heavy-set Southern black girl running around, and he falls in love with her like he did in that movie. That to me was dynamic. And then when she beats the kid, her heavy-set kid, for overeating, it was projection. She was projecting, the whole movie was about projection. She was projecting her own fatness, her own anger into him. And I thought the dynamic of that was incredible. And they said, no. Halle Berry wants to do it, we're going with her. And don't get me wrong, it was successful, and she won an Oscar. I think it was her first one. And she was very good. Don't get me wrong about that. We're just talking about business versus aesthetic, what made that movie sell. And then Lee Daniels and I talked about that. I said, man, he goes, I know the dynamic. But but we had Halle Berry, of course, and we're all happy. But guess what came out of that? Anybody can guess?
Precious?
Exactly. Precious came out of that. He took that and said, I'm going to continue this. And then you saw the heavy set. That was supposed to be the mother in Monsters Ball. And I looked at him and I said, God bless you, man. You did it, man. You did it. So that's just the things you have to fight with the studio. If we didn't have Queen Latifah, they said Cookout would never happen. At that time. It may have happened later, but at that time it was not going to happen. They wanted Queen Latifah, and she was great. She was great in it, by the way. Yes, sir.
If you're writing and directing shorts, like at festivals like this, should you hone your craft doing the same genre or same style, or should you try a wide variety of styles?
It's up to you. It's really up to you what your style is, what your voice is. We're here because we have voices. Then you saw these scripts. I always look at shorts, and I'm beginning to learn. I look at the pattern, because what I like what Jerry and them and most festivals do, they put them as a group. So I watch the group, and I look for the pattern. What are the voices that people are talking about, what the young kids are talking about? Technology, AI, anxiety, fear, and healing. That's what we're seeing. That's the pattern. So it depends on your voice. My opinion on that question is it depends on what you like. Yes, stretch yourself out. It's like an actor. You ever see these actors that play the same role? They always play the mafia guys, and you see them in another mafia movie, and then you see them in another mafia movie, and they're character actors, but that's how they get their bread and butter. But the good actors like Sean Penn and all these great actors, they break out of that. So it depends on what your voice is, and I'll tell you what, I think you'll have more opportunity to find your range or to break out into a different range with shorts. Because all that money all that time you're trying to raise $1 million, $2 million to do a feature, it will come if you're still at it. It will come to you. But right now it's so hard to find that right now. you know, and I deal with, I broke away from the studios, I deal with hedge funds now, entertainment hedge funds, and they, you know, they have a whole hedge fund group, and they're geared just for entertainment. So that's why, and it's hard, man, it's not easy. So, my projects, like I said earlier, are ready to go. What's stopping us is the financing. Once we go, boom, we're all working. And I have my team already ready to go. But don't present a project that's not ready. You know, really, you know, when I write, I send people to Dan the script, and they'll give me constructive criticism. I don't want to hear criticism about, oh, if it was my script, I would do this way. That's not your script. I want to hear what your critiques are and what you read, or what you saw in a reading and stuff like that. So that's basically, you know, along those lines. Does that help you answer that question? Yes, sir. I saw you in Triumph too, by the way.
Yeah.
Good to see you again, man. I love your film in Triumph. That was good. It was really nice. I was one of the judges in the Triumph. So any other questions? You have a serious face. What any questions?
Yeah, I was just Indian. It was awesome.
Okay. No, good.
A lot of information.
Ask me a question. I'll get you out.
Over
We'll
here,
go.
Frank.
Yes, sir. Who? I'm sorry. Yes.
Hey, so I was just wondering, like, you said to stay true to your voice and also follow trends. If your voice is the exact opposite of what's trending, would you recommend still
Go
following
with that.
it?
Go with your voice.
Okay.
Go with your freestyle. Always go with your. I don't think I said trends. I don't see. I don't
Oh,
know
I'm
trends.
sorry, the AI thing.
Oh, yeah. No,
So
I saw the pattern of the film
Pattern
that you
on it.
saw.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I misunderstood that. Yes. I look for the patterns and of what kids are making because I do it to myself. I said, what's everybody talking about? What are these people up here talking about? It could be good, bad, yellow, you know, sloppy, whatever. But they're saying something, and that's what I look for in that. But trends, fuck trends.
Right. Gotcha. I'm so sorry. You're on the wrong board.
I'm serious. I'm sorry about that, but it's like, just go with your own voice. Trust me, and learn and be humble. These guys taught me. I mean, there was a bunch of them, him and Vinny Guga, and he's a really good. I always bring him up because I always bring it up, and he probably gets tired of me saying it, but I just want them to know that I appreciate it. Because without these people, I would not have learned. And they taught me how to be humble. Man, I tell you what, when I got out of school, I was at film school, I thought I was a director. I got out, I'm a director, I had a master's degree in directing. My class was Spike Lee, Coen Brothers, and John Killick, who's a well-known producer now. That was our class. I got out, man, I had to learn how to be humble and learn again. Learn to get coffee. Learn to sweep the floors. Learn to listen.
Make lights.
Make lights in piece of cans. Yeah. We used to do theater, and we didn't have enough money to do lights and off Broadway. So my lighting designer said, okay, you went to a pizza place next door and got those pizza cans, tomato cans, sauce cans, and he painted them black, and boom, that was our focus point. You know, that was our light, you know. So, but you do what you have to do. But you learn. Don't ever think you know everything. We are not. The director is not God. They don't know everything on the set. They don't know anything, just like anybody else. But I'll tell you something else. The only people who really care are the above-the-line people, your actors, directors, writers. The other, don't think you have to be friends with your entire crew. I don't mean that. You're paying them, as long as you're paying them benefits and good salary. Don't abuse them, but you're paying them. They don't care. You know, the project falls, they say, okay, I got my back shut, I'm going to the next one. So don't expect to be friends to everybody, and you're not God. Nobody is. And you're going to learn. You're going to learn as you go. Don't stop learning on your craft. Because these guys, you learn your craft, man. And I still believe in that. I still live by that today. That's what keeps me going. You know, and that's why I left the studio, because the studio got too much into, you know, trends or this or that, you know. But I did learn a lot from them. Don't get me wrong. I did learn a lot. Yes, sir.
I have a question. So you do a film, and I know certain filmmakers, they put everything they got into the film. They spend $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 of their own money, but they got it done. And I guess once it's done, and I know a few filmmakers, they've done the film, and I go, damn it didn't go anywhere. Like, what the hell? You know, and then all of a sudden, maybe a year later, 2 years later, I see something like it's playing on Tubi.
Right.
I think well after the fact. Even in this film festival,
right,
we've seen some great. I remember there was a film called Montauk '77. He had a distribution deal. I don't know if it was Amazon or whatever. I don't know if he got paid or how that was done. I guess that's what I'm trying to find out. Like, my question is, like, once you have a 90-minute film and it's done, where do I take it?
Well, did you ever look at libraries and Amazon, Hulu, the libraries now, not the originals? You ever look at who the hell this movie. You know, it's like, you know, there are movies that, when you see a Netflix original, Hulu original, HBO original, you know they were behind it. And they were gonna do everything they can to make that the best thing in the world. But what's happening now, it's an outlet for, you know, people whose films don't get made, but they're making 1% on every viewing. You know, they're not making anything, it's just in the library. When you scroll through Amazon, you see all these films, you get tired of scrolling. But they're not Amazon pictures, really. They're just, Amazon picked it up to fill up the library. Because where the studio makes, they build up, what they're doing though, keep in mind, that's a good question by the way, that what they're doing is they're building up their collateral. And what's their collateral? Their library. Look at Warner Brothers being sold right now. What do you think Paramount wants to buy that for? They're not gonna buy it for the studio space, they have studio space. They're not gonna buy it for, they hire us, they have people. They buy it for their library. So they could go into syndication, so they could go over here, and that's what that is for. You know, so they're building up their library. You know, but there's a lot of films like, I can't answer why it didn't get shown. Did they show to go to festivals? Did they not go to festivals? If they did, they didn't get anywhere. They didn't get accepted. You know, there's a lot of answers to that. So, and not every film's gonna get made. That gets shown or gets distribution. But I think nowadays, I never used to do documentaries back in the day because there was never an outlet. You know, how can you go talk to your investor, give me money to do a documentary, and they're gonna say, what's my ROI, return on investment? Back then, there was no outlet really. Now you got HBO documentaries, you got all these things, so you gotta look at that. And now, if you're talking about trend, not to confuse it, that's what I would look at. Look at if I'm gonna make this little film, who's handling the shorts? Who's handling this kind of feature? Who's putting it out there? You gotta do your homework, man. And you get out there, and it's hard. It's easier said than done, you know. But that's a hard question to answer. But then you turn around. If it doesn't happen, what did you learn from? My question would be, what did you learn from that film? And what are you going to do in your next film? Go to the next one. Don't forget, Scorsese did Boxcar Bertha, and before that he did Roger Corman movies, horror movies. And Brian De Palma said to him, "What the hell are you doing that for?" And he goes, "Well, John Cassavetes, and that was a great, and that's independent filmmaker. That's what Scorsese learned from, you know. So, but he was doing the same thing, little horror films and stuff like that. But then he had to learn himself. Well, don't do them anymore. You know, you go to the next one. I would say, you know. Yes. Anybody else? Yes, yes, ma'am. Both of you. Yeah.
Yeah. How you doing, Frank?
Good. How you doing, buddy?
Good. What do you think is the most important thing to try and get at when you're directing and acting in it, and what you need to stay clear of as a pitfall when you are directing and acting in it?
Well, make sure you can act. Make sure you're good. It's like, you see that, it's hard. It's very hard. Right. I think, and I say this carefully.
You get that a lot in the short.
Yes, but if you're not right for it, make sure it's right for you. Like anybody else, you want it when you cast. Take it from an objective point of view. If you're casting a movie, a short or whatever, is that person right for this movie? Can he or she execute what you want? And now you have to ask yourself, can I do that role? If you're writing for yourself, then write it for yourself. You know, Spike Lee is famous for that. And I can say this because Spike, I know Spike, I work with Spike. I think his downside is that he imposes a lot on his material. That has nothing to do with the story. Like he may say, this and this needs that. But don't get me wrong, he's an iconic filmmaker. And I remember when Spike Lee was starting, and the first movie he did was She's Gotta Have It, way before Do the Right Thing. And the reason why he got that, because we were in school, and his mother passed away, and he was so depressed that the grandmother got the insurance from the mother's death, and gave him $60,000, says, go ahead and do this, she will want you to do this. And that's how She's Gotta Have It was done. You know, and we all worked on it. We were students. We were all like working on it and stuff like that. But sometimes he imposes too much. Sometimes he acts, and my wife worked on Malcolm X with Denzel Washington Spike, and there was major arguments because Spike, in the very opening of Malcolm X, he's on court, he did murder, and the judge says, you're going to life in prison. He faints, and then Denzel Washington says, what the hell is this movie called? It's called Malcolm X. Why is the first 20 minutes about you? So it's that kind of a thing. So, and don't get me wrong, it's not, I'm just being objective on that. And I can say that because I do know him and stuff. And we had these conversations before. But he's Spike Lee, he's iconic. He's one of the best independent filmmakers I think we have today with Tarantino and all these other young people in art at my age. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Frank, what are your thoughts on AI going into the future with the industry?
It's
so scary.
AI is always comes up nowadays, and as you can see in the film. It's a tool. It's a tool. You're not going to get away from it. It's what I don't like where it takes over our voice. I don't like. I mean, the biggest thing. My daughter was on the board for the AI voiceover acting, motion caption for the SAG against the studios, and it all came down to when they were on strike. It all came down to one word. They all compromised on one word, which hurts both sides. Is the word consent. If this actor, if I say I'm going to use now, this is how they interpret AI. I'm going to shoot you now, and you're done. I'll pay you $1,500. But I could take you, this life, your voice, and put it somewhere else, and forever, somewhere else. And that's what I don't believe. Okay? But the only thing they can settle with is the word consent. If this actor consented, yes, you could do that. I'm just doing it for fun or whatever. Then now, as a producer and director, and the studio says, get other people's consent. So now I come in, and you're great for the movie. I said, you audition. I said, are you going to give me your consent? You go, no, I'm not going to give you consent. Oh, okay. Next. I'm going to find somebody who's going to give me consent. You know, that's where it doesn't work. And the biggest thing now, if you look at CAA, which really pisses me off, is CAA, William Morris agency, top agencies are bidding who's going to represent that 3D real life AI character. Have you heard about that? Yes. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Yes. Yeah. Who now? And then a question came up when she runs the red carpet. Who's going to be on the red carpet? You know, who's going to do it? And then another example was, I'll tell you who gave consent was Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford gave consent on Indiana Jones. Why? I don't know why, but I don't know. But he doesn't need it. But he gave consent, and the other people said no. But the other side of the story is that it's like it's a tool. Like I use movie magic budgeting. I use movie magic scheduling. AI is good for the medical fields. It's good for math. It's good for science field. It's good for a lot of things in that as a tool to help. But it should never ever take over our voice. He was just telling me a story about a robot that's taking up delivering pizzas. So
yeah, I wanted to say that I've known Frank forever, and he's always been this crazy. But what you should, a lot of great information. If you had 4 producers, directors, they'd all be arguing. But one thing you really should learn from Frank, I mean, he's not the kid anymore. He's been around a long time. See how energetic he is? See how passionate he is? If you don't have that with your project, and be objective about it, I see people pitching scripts that I wouldn't wipe my ass with. And they are out there spending money doing it, then haven't read it aloud in front of somebody like Frank, or given it to somebody like Frank and say, what do you think? I'm saying this now because I couldn't wait to get here to not pitch the story. It's a true thing to Frank, because I knew he would latch onto it. It's a great idea. How it develops, who writes it, where it goes to. Young people are going to go where I don't want to go, and I don't think Frank wants to go. But
that's a good story.
I would not pitch this idea to anyone in this room because I don't know you well enough. But I would pitch to Frank, and that's what you should learn is the passion here. And he was always like this.
Yeah, you got to learn. You got to break down and learn. But otherwise you're not going to move up. Nobody knows everything. You know that. Look how many divorces we all have. So, nobody knows. It starts off loving each other, and it ends up, in a divorce. And then once you find it, stay together. That's the blessing. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
There's kind of 2 schools of thought, I think. One is just produce as much as you can, and you get better as you go, and that sort of thing, and you have a bigger body of work. The other one is focus on what you do best and make something really fantastic.
It's a good question, because you see a lot of people out there, especially in the studio system, you see a lot of people out there just pumping out stuff. Yeah. And it's like, it's like that example I gave about the character actors always playing the Italian guy, always playing the mom. And the next movie he's playing the mom. Next movie he's playing the mom. Next movie he's playing the same character. And then if I'm doing an Italian mom movie, I'm going to say, I don't want that guy, because everybody's going to know him. He's going to fall into little traps that he as an actor. So I'm going to go with somebody new. I want somebody new. That kind of thing. But I always say, go with what you do best, man. Go with what you do best, because in the end, you're going to have to love it, man. If you get on the set and you don't love it, And unless you're a work for hire, if you don't love it, then you're gonna feel it. And you hit it personally. That does hurt you personally, you know. So you just do your best. Like I said earlier, you take it in your hand, you make the movie, you surround yourself with great people to help you, and their vision, your vision comes together, and then in the end, you take it in your hand, you throw it against the table like a pair of dice, and how it lands, it lands.
Frank, I've gotten to know you now for
Yes,
the
sir.
last couple of years, and I agree with Dan, you are very passionate. So, in looking at raising money, which I know is the hardest and worst part of this industry, is it that passion, when you find an investor, when you're with people that have the money to do it, a lot of times those people may not be creative people.
Right.
Do you find it's the passion that you bring to it that gets that money more than their ability to
Yes,
see
yes,
the
yes,
story?
because exactly, let's say you're an investor, and you saw my pitch deck, you know, everybody knows pitch deck, what a pitch deck is. So you saw my pitch deck, and you bring me in and says, you know, I like this, let me hear from the filmmaker himself. If I come in fumbling, you're gonna say, I'm investing. Let me tell you something, investors get that aesthetic thing that they're gonna love the movie. They don't give a shit about the movie. They're gonna say, yeah, I love it, I'm gonna do it, but how am I gonna get my money back? How am I gonna get my money back? And if you say, well, my mom's gonna pay you, then that's very low budget. You know, but the thing is, like, you gotta look at it from the business side and learn. When I was a young kid, Dan knows the guy too. He was my best friend, and we wrote a script together. And back then it was starred Matt Dillon, way before Drugstore Calo. You know, way before that. He was just on that cusp of breaking out, and we had it. And then all of a sudden I realized I'm not invited. I was a director. He was going to write it and act in it. I wasn't invited to the meetings. I was invited to the agents' meeting. I was invited to the. I was like, this guy's my best friend at that time. I don't know my best friend, but my best friend at that time was listening to the agents and everybody else saying, we don't need Frank. What do we do? What do we need Frank for? And they were trying to steal me out. So I went to my entertainment lawyer, who's still my lawyer to this day. And I went in like a young kid, moaning and groaning, oh, he's my best friend, and he's stealing my script, and he does this, and he's doing that. And then the guy says, shut the fuck up, man. He goes, it's called show business. It's not called show art. He says, learn the business so you can protect your art and get paid for your art. And to this day, I still believe that. So you got to show your investors, when you meet your investors, what is the IROA? Like I just said today about the outlets for shorts, documentaries. You say, here's where we can go, here's where we can go, and you can never, ever guarantee it. They say, can you guarantee my money back? No, I can't. I can never do that. And you have to tell them it's a high-risk investment, just because you're soliciting money. So otherwise you get sued. And sometimes people, be careful when you say you want to be the producer, because when the shit hits the fan and you're signing yourself in court, being sued, you say, well, I'm not really the producer, I was just a little kid coming on. You know, be careful, you got to take responsibility for that. So my answer to that is learn how to do your pitch. Learn how to, learn how the business, learn all the sides of the business on the film you're doing. How are you going to make that guy's money back? If I said to you, like you said you had a script, how are you going to give me my money? How am I going to get my money back? Forget about your script. I don't care how good it is. I don't care if you have Dan Loria. You know, how are you going to make my money back? I want my money back. You got to answer that, man. And that's your pitch. That's your business meeting. If I go into a meeting here, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, it's a great script. Oh yeah, I'm going to do great. I'm going to do that. They're going to say, I got to show them how they're going to get their money back. Yes, track record, my track record. But Scorsese, they didn't give money to Scorsese at the time. I told you that example, because he was asking for too much. You know, so it depends on what you're doing. You know, so I would say learn how to business. Learn your business. It's a show. It's called show business for a reason. Learn that business, man, because that's what's going to keep you up, especially your young guys. That's what's going to keep you up in later years. And that's where you're going to make your money. And that's why I learned how to AD, assistant direct. That's why I learned how to line produce. That's how I learned how to UPL. Because when I got out of school, I did not want to have a day job in a restaurant. I didn't want to have a day job here and there in a bookstore. I wanted to be around it. So I started from the bottom. After having all these degrees in theater, film, it didn't mean shit. You know, so that's what I learned. And so it's that kind of growth that you have to have with them. You know, so I hope that helps. There's no, because first of all, 9 times out of 10, you meet your investors, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to happen. Know that. But the trick here is to get them to know, like somebody says, yeah, I'll finance your movie if we had a party, they're trying to impress a girl, they're trying to impress this or that. Yeah, I'll invest your movie. Get them to the table right away. Don't let them say, yeah, talk to me Friday. Talk to me next Friday. Let me talk to you next Friday. Let me talk to you next Friday. Because then you're just melting, you're running around a tree melting the butter. You don't want to get them to the table right away so you can say, okay, I take the lead. If I take the lead, then I'm going to take the lead. So if you say no eventually, I say, okay, I'll go to you. You know, you move on. But don't run around listening to them say, talk to me next week, talk to me next week, talk to me next week, talk to me next week. Because eventually they're going to say, well, I can't do it. And then you spend, you know, so you want to learn what they can do right away. And do your homework on them. Research the person you're an investment group you're dealing with. You know, I one time gave money back because we were doing the same film with Matt Dillon is when we were younger. And it was about Down syndrome, a boxer with his Down syndrome brother. And we had a Down syndrome kid that we were thinking about casting. And the father said, listen, I'm going to put $250,000 in, $25,000 into this movie to help if you take my kid. And the kid, we were going to go with the kid because the kid was wonderful, brand new, the Down syndrome kid. And I said, well, where are you going to get? Where's this money coming from? He goes, well, it's between this, getting my son this movie, or my wife wants a new kitchen. I took that check, I put it back, I said, do me a favor. Do the kitchen because you're going to live with that for 20 years. Because this, you're never going to know what's going to happen with this, man. And he did. And we got the money elsewhere, but I didn't want to take his money. Don't think that money's yours. You can spend it. You got to put that in an escrow account. You start spending money that you don't want. Let's say, like, if I'm raising $3 million and she gave me $1 million, I put that in an escrow account in the production name. I can't spend that until I get the $3 million. The other two. If I do, she's going to come after me. And I have to give it back if I don't have amount of days to give it, to do it. Like say she said, okay, I got 180 days to do it. She gives me $1 million. 181 days come up, she has the right to say, I want my money back. If I go in there and say, oh, I spent it, then you're in court. You're in court. So. Any other questions before we wrap it up here? One more question. Laura.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes, sir.
When you write something and you give it to a director, do you still keep your input, or is there a balance?
Yes. That's what I said. That I mean, you know who Aaron Sorkin is, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Imagine Aaron Sorkin writing something. I'm a director. I'm gonna say I'm gonna do it this way. You think he's gonna say yeah? No. I mean, it's a collaboration. Everything we do is a collaboration, and that's why the director. That's why I said when I met with the director for The Believer, I said we hit it off. I knew what his problem, what he wanted. I knew what I wanted. I knew how to help him. And trust me, that was a tough production, and I was ready for it. And that's The Believer is what got us all on the next level, because it was my big break in the majors. It was his big break in the major. It was Jim Denal who shot it, who's now doing Yellowstone. And it was Ryan Gosling's big break. It was all our big break into the majors, and we did. It was a tough production. I don't want to get into that, but yes, I always it's a collaboration, and there's nobody that's going to say. I mean, even Scorsese goes back to his writer and says, "What do you think, man? Is this what you're looking for? Is it what we're talking? Do we miss it? When I work, there's one time I was talking to Laura last night. The playwright and I asked to do plays. We debated for 2 weeks whether to use but or and in a scene. And it meant something. It really did mean something. But that's how much you're into it. It won't mean anything to anybody else out in the world, but it does mean it. It does mean something. Let me show The Believer real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Yeah. George? Yeah. The Believer. Yes. This way you can see The Believer. The trailer for The Believer. This is what one. This is what.
Hello?
Daniel Bailey. I'm a reporter.
Reporter for who?
New York Times.
People hate Jews, do you agree? The very word makes their skin crawl. They undermine traditional life, and they deracinate society. You can take the greatest Jewish minds ever. Marx, Freud, Einstein, what have they given us? Communism, infantile sexuality, and the atom bomb.
Danny, this is great, but how can you believe all of this when you're a Jew yourself?
You're not like the others, are you? I want you to teach it to me.
Why?
They're your enemy.
You want to know the real reason why we hate them? Because they exist. We have all the reasons we need in 3 simple letters. J-E-W. Jew. You say it 1,000,000 times, it's the only word that never loses its meaning.
I How can you wear that thing? Do you know what it means to your people?
They're not my people.
Hit me, please! Are you out of your mind? You really want to kill Jews? You want to kill me?
We're the chosen people. Isn't that right, Daniel?
I still get calls on that film. It holds up in today's world. It holds up in today's world, you know. And also, it's our competition at that time in Sundance, and at the Tribeca was, at the New York Film Festival, was The Believer, Almost Famous, American History X, and I think it was Crash, or Crash, it was Bobby, another friend of mine's film. That was our competition. That's what, we were all up for the same thing. And one won somewhere else, and we won somewhere else. And I used to sneak away to watch the screening for Almost Famous, because I love that film. But I'm gonna wrap this up, and I want to thank you all. I hope this was helpful for you. It was about you guys. I believe in giving back. And yes,
Just to wrap up, Frank, because your career is so impressive, do you have any advice for us as the industry continues to shift and change? Any of
grow with it. Learn it, grow with it. Learn the business, man. Learn it. If it shifts on you, doesn't mean you're like, oh, you're gonna go off to pasture. Learn it. What am I not learning here? What am I not doing here? You know, learn, move with it. Move with it. It's like growing old. It's like growing up. You know, you're 1 year you're 10 years old, next year is 15. You're playing Little League ball, now you're playing Babe Ruth ball. You know, you learn with it. You know, that's a good question, by the way. Thank you. But I believe in giving back, and that's what I do a lot. So I'm here for you guys. I'll be here all weekend, with thanks to Jerry and Katie. And if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer it for you. Thank you, sir.